Welcome back to episode 47 of the Coalcast. Today, Nathan Brandt, the co-founder of Coal Ironworks, is sitting across the table from our indomitable GM.
I just use that for everybody.
Francois.
Also, do we have to introduce ourselves every week?
Yeah, because what if they've never watched the podcast before?
Well, that's on them.
No, it's not. It's about communication.
A little bit on them.
It's about communication. They want to know who you are, Francis. And you know what? The reality is, you're worth knowing.
Debatable.
So today, we're going to begin by getting an update. How was the hammer in, Francis?
It was pretty good. Me and
You're supposed to
Charlie
put yourself last.
and Greg went to Bob Rankin's, which is 4-ish hours away.
Is it Indiana or Michigan?
Nope, it is in Michigan.
Okay.
And we went up there, got there about noonish, and had a good time. Got to talk to a couple of guys who were concrete guys and talked about kind of the same idea that you've talked about a couple times of knowledge spreading to other aspects. Mm-hmm. And then I've got to put new gravel down thanks to some storms. In my driveway, I assuredly will have to pull up some gravel and put some fresh gravel down. And while I was talking to him, it was like, man, this is going to suck. And then 2-3 minutes later was like, this is just planishing the entire process. Because my bed is down. I have my smaller gravel that's absorbed into the dirt and into the ground below it. And then, it kind of piles up. It's been there for a while. So all I'll have to do is lay down little bits of fresh gravel and planish it out, even it out, make sure that my pitch is correct so that it drains into the road and not into my yard. The unfortunate thing about that is I have a dip in the U. So inside the U, there's a dip. So no matter what I do, I'm going to collect water there, but maybe I'll lay some dirt and also planish some dirt out. But got to hang out with those guys for a little while. Got to talk to a couple. It was a more of a knife makers meetup. So
what is Bob Rankin Knives?
Yes,
that makes sense.
Custom knives, I believe.
Custom knives.
But yeah, it was a good time. We had a little bonfire. I fell asleep at the bonfire. We were there too late, which is apparently par for the course. So apparently this is one that goes on late. We're at around 10 o'clock. They started forging again. Bob was really, really excited about that. He was really stoked about everybody coming out and not only getting some work done, but the community aspect and everybody getting to know each other. And he would walk up to me and he'd say, "Hey, do you know that guy?" And I'd say, "No, I don't know that guy." I'd be like, "Go talk to him. If he doesn't talk, he's not allowed here." It was apparent from the outset, as with most hammer ins, yes, there is an aspect of we want to come and, there's equipment available and let's get some projects done and some collaborations. But let's get to know each other and let's learn how to support each other better. And especially, we got to know Bob a lot better through some events that happened in his life. We did a podcast about it if you want to go back and listen to it. But he is very, very set and focused on making sure people feel connected. And I guess just that community aspect
right.
is very important to him. And so there was a lot more meaningful conversations that went on than a typical, like, what size rounder do you use? So had a great time. Saw Charlie talking to some people and Greg talking to some people, and I didn't talk to either of them all day. So, yeah, it's a good event, good fun event.
Wonderful. That's so good to hear. Really. Our other topic of discussion is truly near and dear to my heart. And that is our Coal School Minis. Producer Evan, would you summon our screen share? Ooh. Coal School Minis. So I want to introduce you to the Coal School of Iron. This is our school that is within our press factory, and we have begun to try and offer more accessible, smaller classes. So if all you have is an hour a week to devote to developing your skill set, then the minis are a great architecture to jump into. We have a schedule. Can you show the schedule on one of the classes? Mm-hmm. If you'll notice, it says book it now. This gives you the flexibility to tell us when you have time available to take a class. And so as those classes fill up, those dates and times will fall off of the calendar. And so you can be assured that if you have a day and time available that you'd like to jump into one of our short classes, you're able to do so. So this is something new that we've started offering recently, and it is doing rather well. And so we just want to really kind of lean into it and get as many newcomers into the class as possible. So if you have an interest in developing your blacksmithing capabilities, you want to try out equipment, you want to meet Charlie and get a world-class blacksmith's perspective on something that you're trying to do, jump into a mini. Come visit us here. You'll get to try out all of the equipment, and we have one of everything, if not two of everything, sitting back in our school. And you'll notice down here we have what we're calling a press test. So if you've ever wondered what it was like to use a press or how it would fit your process, book one of our press test slots. And you can jump in, you can try out inductions, you can try out presses, you can try out tooling. Let us know what you're wanting and hoping to do in that time, and we can make it happen. We also offer, as a part of your press test, a 15-minute, 20-minute shop tour of our Coal Iron Works facility right here in Anderson, Indiana, where we build all of our equipment, and including our recently launched KAs, which are 100% made in the United States. And so that'll be a really fun time and give you kind of some background to the company that you're working with when you're buying equipment. So I just wanted to highlight that this morning and let you know that that was available, as well as shout out to Mr. Charlie. Now, I do have one caveat. If you are interested in taking a class outside of the available times, reach out to us. I am very curious if more people would be able to attend if it was in the evenings or weekends. And so let us know your thoughts on that, because we would love to make that happen if that turns out to be the case. So now we have a new segment in our repertoire of segments. In response to our last Reddit conversation.
The follow-up to the follow-up.
We received a question.
Yes.
And the question is, how do I address the problem that knife making causes me to want to quit my day job?
Understandable.
Francis, what do you do with that emotion?
Well, I did quit my day job. So take this with a grain of salt, because I was put in a unbelievable situation where at a young age, I found a friend who got me involved in blacksmithing and then created a business around blacksmithing. And for several years tried to snipe me from my full-time job. And then ended up being successful. And not only was I blessed in that aspect, but I've been incredibly blessed in the aspect of it being very fruitful for me. Going from living in Chicago, Indianapolis, St. Louis area, where the cost of living is much higher, where community is somebody you might run into at a restaurant. You know, it's not the same. So being invited into Coal Iron Works has given me the ability to, I moved here with nothing, and within 2 years purchased a house, bought a brand new car, or not brand new. It's very not brand new. Purchased a vehicle. As far as my story goes and getting more into the making realm, I am one of the few and far between. So my advice is a little bit more hopeful, I guess, or providential than other people's. But if you are getting to the point where knife making is a valid option, and say you're making 3 or 4 knives a month and they're selling before you can get them finished, or, if you do releases on your website and they're selling out first day, I think it is time to start looking into creating either an LLC or something small and operating what is known by the kids these days as a side hustle. And track money going in and money coming out, and see how legitimate can you make that hustle? Is it a viable option? I'm looking for the word viable there, not legitimate. If you are able to replace your income, or an income that, if you're living high on the hog and you're okay with not living high on the hog, and you can live off what you're selling with knives, then why not do it? There's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of guys that you've never heard of that are selling a lot more knives than you'll ever see. There's a lot of guys who can make 5 or 6 knives and sell 2 of them and be okay. So the market is ready for innovation, and it's ready for you, and it's ready for what you have to offer. The problem is doing the legwork to finding out where that market is. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of examples, like our friend Seth, who retired from the military, went into full-time blade making. He's able to go to maybe some shows that we wouldn't be successful at, even in our own, I can't go out to like a gun and knife show and sell a bunch of what I do. And then you have like Will. Will has a few kind of dedicated buyers that when he posts something, we'll text him and say, hey, that one's mine.
Well, and his format is in the process of transitioning over. Yes. He's going into trying to do OEM and manufacturing. And, I think my bent is always to propel people towards that. But I think a great way to stair-step your success is to start small and build.
Right.
And I would like to add a side note that if you are listening to this podcast right now and you have wanted, desired, dreamed, thought of, wistfully pursued joining the Coal Iron Works team, we do have an opening.
Yes.
And if you have experience in shipping, that would be valuable. But if you are a thoughtful, caring person, send us a DM, because we would love to pull someone from our internal community if possible. But we could use some help. So I'll add that. And then bouncing off what you said, I want to ask you, so you gave Seth as an example. Mm-hmm. Do you know of anyone else semi-personally that's been able to make the leap and be successful?
Paul made it very recently. Paul Elkins. He actually won the shirt a couple weeks ago. And he recently left a very well-known name in the coffee space. Was a district manager for coffee stores and loved his job, but loved making knives more. Mm-hmm. And it got to a point where he was making knives, selling them, kind of tracking custom requests, how long it was taking them, and he sat down and did the math.
Yeah.
And put in a bunch of time at work and making sure that he had a little bit of a nest egg.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
super important.
Before he made the final jump, I believe, once again, Paul, call us out if I'm wrong, I do this thing where I just combine everybody's stories and make one big, massive, this is what happened to one person when it didn't. But I believe he got to know a chef that was buying his knives and ended up coming up with a collaboration that is entering some small shops and is doing a pretty well priced. I think it's like $500 for like a chef's set.
Yeah.
And they're hand forged. Maybe they don't have the best material on the market. Maybe the handle material is not the best material on the market. But when you think about it, when you're going to like culinary school and they say, you have to bring your own knives, that even, college kid age can't go out and buy 5 $2,000 knives.
Right.
So getting a set and just getting them started is imperative. And, then that boils down to that guy ends up getting a job at a restaurant and he's moved on from that initial set of knives, but he knows what they are, he knows what to expect out of them. And then he can go tell his line chefs, he's like, hey, if you're looking for a good deal on knives that work, go pick up these.
Yeah.
Or, whatever the case is. So before he made the final jump, he kind of had a little bit of work coming in.
Yeah.
And then he also had his customs and then all the stuff he's just making and taking to shows and selling. But he really, after talking to him at the Hammer In this year, he did it the right way.
Yeah.
He did it the smart way. He didn't just jump in and expect people to buy knives because he wrote, I'm going full time.
Right.
As wonderful as it would be to be able to just have, 5,000 followers and be able to say, hey guys, I'm going full time. And those people go, I have extra money. Let me buy something from you. That's just not the way it works.
Right.
So having a plan set up and understanding how much money roughly you're going to have coming in, how long you have until your nest egg burns out. It's important to know kind of the space you're going to be in. And I'm sure you, of all people, understand, okay, I'm doing this full time. There are some hurdles I'm going to have to hit. And there are hurdles that you projected, and there's also hurdles you don't project.
And you can't. Until you start.
So you did it much the same way where you worked a full-time job until it was viable for you to quit.
Absolutely.
And work full,
And viable in my book at the time, was vastly different than where I'm sitting now. We had one child. My wife was still working. It's a different value proposition to look at a life. I now have 5 children and we own a farm and we have an extensive demand.
Right.
And so if I were to re-identify a path forward today, it would be a lot scarier. It doesn't mean that it's wrong, but I would have to take a lot more into consideration.
Right.
And so, your comment about having a nest egg, so I would call that runway. How much runway do you have before that plane has to take off?
Yeah.
You have to be able to get into the air. And so that nest egg buys you runway, and every dollar that doesn't have to go out, cancel the Netflix, cancel all of the superfluous spending and bare knuckle it down the runway. I think people will be surprised. I mean, I've been surprised, simply changing our habits from eating out 4 times a week. Now I have 5 kids and an average cost per takeout is around $70 to $80.
Yeah.
But I can easily burn a $1,000 within a month that I don't have to if I needed to redirect. So I think, getting the plane as light as you can means that your runway will be longer.
Well, that doesn't only apply to people with children or...
Of course not.
I am a single guy who doesn't have any children, and I don't have college loans. I don't have a car payment. I am able to do some of the things that I'm able to do because I prioritize them.
Like buy your dear friends lunch on a continual basis.
That is my one thing that I refuse to give up. I grew up in a very loving household that is not always apparent to other people that it is loving and supportive. And the one way that my parents there was always food on the table for anybody that was there. Every single one of my cousins had lived with us for an extended amount of time. There was always food on the table. There's always a warm bed. So that's something that'll never go away. But making my own meals, I don't have Netflix or, the maker box, whatever they call that, the thing that you pay $60 a month and you get like 5 things that are supposed to be $180 total. Oh, Bespoke Post.
Bespoke Post.
I don't have stuff like that. If something goes wrong with my truck or in my house, I use my network. Mm-hmm. Greg, come over. Nathan, come over.
Yeah.
I kind of look into how I'm able to fix it first because if I can fix it with a buddy, it's going to cost me either just buying them dinner and whatever supplies it took to do it, or B, I'm now gaining the knowledge. I never would have learned to replace brakes on a car if I didn't buy my first car. The very first thing I had to do was replace the brakes. Mm-hmm. And I did that with my dad. And then from there on out, now I know how to do brakes. And then my brake lines went out when I bought my truck from Greg. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to sell you the truck, but I have to replace the brake lines first." And I said, "Okay, come do it in my garage though." And that was when I was like 18 years old. So now I know how to do brake lines as well. Little things that go wrong. I've replaced the alternator on my old truck, not this truck, literally on the side of the interstate. Mm-hmm. Had my buddy come pick me up. We drove to O'Reilly's, and then we sat inside of the hood of my truck and replaced an alternator. So doing things like that not only gained my network, and it was a friend that was, we knew each other, but like I tweeted out, actually, I was driving back from Illinois to Indianapolis, and I broke down almost on 465. And I said, "Hey, can anybody come get me?" And he did. So using that idea of I wouldn't say scarcity mindset, because that's a whole different, I can't afford it, so you're afraid to do things.
Sure.
But frugal, like understanding.
Sure. Thrifty.
How does this add value to my life?
Right.
How many times have you seen me wear this shirt on the podcast? How many times? This is a different hat, but I've had this hat for about 10 years. These pants were a gift from Nathan. They were my signing bonus. I got 2 free pairs of pants. When I go to purchase something, I ask myself, how does this impact my life? And now I can get better because I also have an addiction to energy drinks. And I probably spend $20, $30 a week on energy drinks, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's $100 a month. Right. That's $1,000 a year. Looking for the best bang for your buck. And this has turned into kind of a life lesson thing, but looking for the best bang for your buck, and understanding if I'm starting a business, dedicating income to that business and really, really making that income work for where you're at.
Yeah.
And then the side note that I'll say is, which goes completely against everything I just said, is being generous. Young Corbin and I were driving home. It was about a week or 2 before I bought my house. And I got the chance to kind of have a more intimate conversation about finances than you would typically have with somebody. But he was bringing up, he was like, I got to get better with, being so stingy. And there's been times that I've offended people by, and it was specifically brought up by his dad is also very well known for buying lunch for people and just showing up and having food. And he was like, why do you guys always do that? And it's like, yeah, I suppose I could be a little bit more selfish and do more things for myself. But the benefit that I get from having the community I have from being generous, I can't put a monetary value on, you've got a buddy that's struggling. You can choose to struggle with him or have him struggle alone. And aside from them being miserable because they're struggling, knowing that they're struggling, you end up being so much more miserable. There's been times where people have asked for money in situations and I've said no. And for weeks, it racks on me. And I would rather have a good night's sleep than $50, especially at this point in my life.
Sure.
I would rather, if I would pay thousands of dollars for 10 hours of sleep, just one time. But, setting up your income to understand what you're getting, where it's going, the benefit it adds to your life, and then having a small separate piece that is understood. I can't put a measurable, quantifiable value on where this generous money is going to get me.
Yeah.
But I can't put science to it, but trust me, it will work out in your favor.
Sure. Well, I think if I remember right, that conversation basically tied into tithing.
Yeah.
And, that's something that Melinda and I have really talked a lot about over our marriage. We've been married now. This will be our 15th anniversary.
47 years.
And, we have vacillated between, we're going to give 10% to the church and it's our duty to support the body in that way, to recently what we've begun doing is similar to what you said in that conversation specifically, where we set money aside to be generous with. And
right.
it's a protected fund in the way that we acknowledge, like, a lot of the interactions that we have, we often see needs that we feel like we should speak to.
Right.
And putting some planning and strategy behind that, rather than, in our earlier years, it would have been, we've got a little extra, we'll give it. Well, now that allows us to be generous thoughtfully when the opportunities arise.
Right. Instead of when you have it.
Instead of when we have it.
Yeah.
And forcing us to be in a position of, I wish I could. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, if you actually wish you could, then do.
Yeah.
Right. And I have experienced firsthand. There was a very specific time when Melinda and I were first married where we did not have rent money, but it had been impressed upon our hearts voraciously that we needed to give in this specific way. And so we gave the money, and we did so acknowledging that we were giving beyond our means. But we felt like it was the right thing to do. So we did it, and we gave it. And I remember we went to check our bank account. We had to go to the ATM at the time to check our bank account. And we opened the ATM thing and to see what it was. And we had to the dollar the amount that we needed to cover our rent at the time, which was, when you're first married, your rent is probably, I don't know,
$400.
Yeah, I think at the time it was $500 a month because I would mow the grass. So they took some money off. I think especially for people that are believers that participate in their church community, be thoughtful beyond just the normal 10% giving of supporting that body. But also look for, maybe you do keep a few percentage back in a separate fund that you manage specifically for generosity. I think that can be a really beautiful thing. And I know for Melinda and I, it has empowered us on a few occasions to be generous, and it feels really correct.
Yeah.
It feels like a really solid use.
And there is you can get into all of the stories, like you said, of, we gave beyond our means, and then it turned out we had exactly what we needed,
right.
And God's providence is great. And I don't want to discount that by any means. But there is also something to be said of just doing the right thing without expecting anything in return.
Oh, right. I think what all of the scriptures point to kind of a sense of peace. Mm-hmm. Right? Like it's an expectation of peace, and it's a certainty of grace and love. And when you make an action in expectation of that you will be cared for, that is the highest level expectation. Like that's the good stuff. Yeah. That's how to move forward in your life. Wow.
Yeah.
Did we go off topic?
But I do think it's important, and I
think it's relevant.
I think so. Our company was purchased solely for the fact that we needed to sell our building to cover Andy's medical expenses. And when we approached MoFab said, "We love what you're doing. We love you as people. we can purchase your building. That's not a problem. Or we can go above and beyond and be generous. And that's to me, they might get a few dividends here and there, and they might collect a little bit of money. But let me tell you, in my experience, none of that money is going into their households. Every time there is a surplus, we get a new machine, or we get, maybe even they say, hey, you guys have enough money to hire a new employee, or every bit is going back into the business. Now, that's also just good business. Take the first few years and just kind of tool up and kind of spool up. But, we are where we're at today, specifically based off of generosity. Right. And, they could have been like, nope. We've been in a weird economic time since 2008, but,
in one form or another.
And but, it would have been very easy for them to say, you know what? No. Or for them to say, let me buy your building. And then, what we were paying $4,000 a month for in mortgage, now they're going to charge us $6,000. Excuse me. But out of the generosity of their hearts, they came up with a plan that worked out best for us. And it is very hard for me to see, knowing the ins and outs of what's going on, it's very hard for me to see them sitting in a boardroom and saying, this is good for us. This is what is right for us, and we're going to be millionaires.
I do think that there is a righteous place for selfishness. And I feel like that's played out. Funny enough, I read basically that exact quote. So Andy's, I think it's his great-grandfather, started Grady Foundry, and there's a book called Grady of Milwaukee, and in it, there's this one segment where he talks about how beneficial his selfish endeavors had been, because he was treating his employees well and setting them up for success well because it served him.
Right.
And he was very blatant about that. But it was almost this sense of like, I trust that if I do the right thing, it's going to go well for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, what a glorious, selfish endeavor. Right. It's like, I know I'm going to take care of these people because I know ultimately it's going to be my success.
Right.
To be kind and thoughtful in the way that I articulate my business and myself. And so anyway, I think the basis of, I want to quit my job and start this company, I think that's a totally awesome pursuit.
Right.
I think that you should go into it with an open mind about where you're going to land, because, Evan and I were talking about this recently. The moment that you step out of that comfort, the opportunities that you didn't know existed begin to expose themselves, because all of a sudden you can make good on them. And so things will begin to open up, doors will begin to open. They may not be the trajectory. You may start by making chef's knives and end up making, tactical folders. I have no idea. Or you could, who knows, you could end up starting a press company. We thought we were going to be doing ornamental, and here we are 10 years later, and that wasn't at all what took place.
Still selling presses and adding more forging tools to the lineup.
And, ultimately my goal now and my vision for the company is to make sure that we are serving the maker community. And I am hoping to empower people to be small manufacturers. I think cottage industry, I want to see it come back full force.
I
want
almost
to empower
got
it as
kicked out
much
of
as I can.
School, what do they call it? Job fair. Because these kids I've not been invited back. But
actually, I just got the email. We were invited back.
I have continued to, I've continued to work with the school on a different plane. Kids were walking up and it was a job fair. How much do you guys start at? What requirements do you have? What classes do I need to take? Whatever. And every time I'd say, I'm not here for jobs. I'm here to inspire you to work for yourself. So I offer a machine. It's a pretty expensive machine out of the gate, right? But if you are interested in fabrication, if you're interested in blacksmithing, if you're interested in small manufacturing, this is a machine that will make its money back the first couple months you have it. So what I want to do is I want to meet with students and I want to talk to these kids that are in welding classes, small engine repair, kind of the stuff they offer at schools. And I want to inspire them, don't go work at Midas. Go work for your buddy Sal's grandpa. And, I've got a buddy we have a friend up in Michigan, who has worked as part of a small shop, and the owner is starting to think about retirement, and his kids are not interested whatsoever. Don't care. So he is inheriting a business
Right.
that
Yeah.
is just
and
handed over to
I
him.
see that all the time in the agricultural sector.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, farm life is specific and it takes a certain kind of person, and not everyone that's raised on a farm loves it. We were watching Martha Stewart's documentary, and it was so funny to me how her and her siblings had the same experience growing up, and half of her siblings felt like gardening, like as soon as they could escape the demand, they did. And she built her life around it because she flourished in it. She loved it, you know? And you can, I mean, Martha Stewart is a complicated human being, as we all are. Yeah. But I just found it fascinating. It was such a lovely example of like people will experience the exact same scenario and end up at vastly different landing points.
My dad grew up on a farm, and not grew up on a farm as in they owned farmland and was managed. My dad grew up on a farm that was, you wake up and you do your job, not chores. You do the job.
Yeah.
5 hours of work before school, and then you come home and you do your job, and then you do your homework and go to bed. And he ended up going to college. And that's a fun story of the people that were stoked on it and the family members that were not. And,
Sure.
But part of me, I don't want to say resentful of by any means, but part of me is like, I grew up in a small town. A lot of my friends grew up on farms, and drive your tractor to school day was a thing. And, part of me is like, man, I missed out on that. You know, we still have acreage in northern Indiana that we rent out. And it's like, how cool would it have been?
Yeah, absolutely.
To grow up on that. And I have some memories of going up for 4th of July or whatever. But my sister and both of my brothers do not have that feeling whatsoever.
Sure.
Like they're proud to be small town America, but they don't want to be the farming sector of America, you know?
Absolutely. I see it again and again. And again, this whole idea of want to quit my day job, this is such a multifaceted opportunity. And there are a lot of opportunities where people are passing on what they built and looking for people. I mean, Postville, where we bought the KA, Bob Bergman was ready to retire.
Yeah.
And he was looking for somebody to take on the company. And Ryan walked in the door and was from corporate America and said, that is not my skill set. I can do it, but I know there are greater opportunities if I can find a landing pad to jump from, a launching pad to jump from. And so he bought Postville and has now grown it into basically a completely different company. Yeah. Doing far more machining and product development and things that, you know, Bob didn't have that aspiration to. But what he had built became a launching pad for the new era of vision that came into play. Yeah. And that should not be discredited. Launching from an established entity is a huge advantage. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, even like as small as the OEM forgings that we're doing for Best Made or for some of the other companies, it's like I have a launching pad of experience and equipment and thoughtfulness, etc.
Well, like, and reputation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, when I'll make this point, then I have a slight deviation. We probably were not the only ones to message.
Oh, I assume not.
Peter and say, hey, we want to make your axes. In fact, I know of at least 2 guys that sent the same message we did. But Peter is a businessman and he knows what he wants. And so the first thing he did was message, click right above that message on their name, and there's a profile.
Right.
Oh, they have this many followers, whatever. Okay. Wow. their product pages look good. Okay, their posts are involved. They have people asking questions and talking to them, and they're responding. All right, let me look up their reviews on Google, right? Like we had a pedestal, so to speak, where we were able to edge out other people who might have sent the same message and had, 5 pictures of beautiful axes. We didn't have any pictures of axes.
Right.
We didn't have experience in OEM forging. To the smallest degree, we had experience in OEM forging. But because he understood if Nathan goes into this endeavor with 10% of the vigor that he went into Cole Iron Works with, and he was able to grow into this company in 10 years, if he's able to do that with 10% for my product, because that's you'll never get somebody that cares as much about your product as you do.
Sure.
Shout out 12 Ton Tribe. They're like 99%. People that own 12 tons jump to our defense so quickly. Anytime you get on Facebook or Instagram and somebody's like, hey, having an issue or having a problem, people in the 12 Ton Tribe are, first they try to be helpful. It's like, hey, I had that too. This is what I did to fix it. And then second, they defend our name to crusade level adventures. That
New T-shirt design is 12 Ton Tribe with a what is it called? Like a Legionnaire.
A Legionnaire.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we had that kind of nudge forward, like you were talking about. And I think that's a great place to start your endeavors if that opportunity arises.
Absolutely.
Now, to kind of divert a little bit from talking everything from tithing to buying small businesses, you have to think to yourself, this is my relaxing period. Am I taking for granted the fact that I love this so much because I'm able to turn my brain off and it's no longer work?
Right.
Do you want to quit your day job or do you want to be a knife maker? I think that's a very important question to ask yourself. And it's come up. I am, once again, very blessed to work in 2 industries that I was very passionate about. The first one being skateboarding, kind of, we'll say, alt culture. I was really into the punk music scene, hardcore music scene, skateboarding, got to work in that kind of element for 10 years. Once it started to drift away from my thoughts and beliefs and ideals, I got the opportunity to come here. So once again, take this. I feel like every time I give advice, I say take this with a grain of salt, but take this with a grain of salt because I've never worked out of something I wasn't passionate about since I was 21 years old.
Yeah, but don't you think a part of that is the effort that you put into be passionate about what you're doing?
And well,
that's a whole
different topic.
It's both.
But what I'm saying is I never wanted to not do the work. That's never been my, ethos is like, how can I figure out how to make my 9 to 5 easier? It's always been what is missing in the fulfillment. What is missing when I go home at night? Do I feel like I accomplished something? What's that in the office where he says, hey, it's 5 o'clock and we go home. And she says, well, do you feel like you did a full day's worth of work? And like, that's when you go home. I feel like it was funny in the show, but there's something philosophical about that. It's like, I can work until, there's days where I work until 9:30 and it's like, well, that was a day. That was a day, and then there's times where, the first Friday, that's a weird sentence. The very first Friday that I organized and introduced was essentially I came here to be the production manager. Some things got scrambled up. Events happened. I was now the general manager. I had to take over day to day because you had to step back for a purpose. We lost a couple employees who were kind of key to the day-to-day operations. I had to take over customer-facing things and warranty and service things. And at that point, it was like I truly needed access to everything. So we had to do a rundown of that. And every time I was here until like 11 o'clock because I just didn't quite feel like my day was finished. I could make the presentation a little bit better. And I ended up from whatever, I started at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock until 11 o'clock. It was when you were doing the the original axes that you were trying to OEM, the wood bullets. And I was able to come up with a kind of, this is what Cole Iron Works is. This is what I expect out of it. This is what I expect out of my employees. And that was the purpose of the presentation. So it meant that the preparation needed that. And I had to meet the preparation to fulfill the purpose of the meeting, right?
Right.
So all of that to be said, if you want to quit your day job because you don't want to work, you can't be a knife maker. You will not succeed. You know, if you don't want to take weekend trips to go to take classes from Salem Straub or take classes from Charlie, or, you know, you want to be great at making tongs, well, you're going to end up having to talk to Ben Snur because he's the absolute best at it. And you have to make those things fit outside of your ideal schedule. It is hard work. We were just talking about the fact that I go to shows and I work 60 hours a week. And when I'm at home, if I catch an email at 9 o'clock at night, I answer that email, which I've tried to get better about. I've taken a few of our email addresses off of my personal phone. But if you want to quit your job because you think life's going to be easier,
It's definitely not.
it's definitely not.
Right.
But now, all of that sounded very negative and kind of brash. Your life will be so much more fulfilling. And I don't.
If you're leaning into the passion of what you're
Exactly.
pursuing. Right.
Exactly. I don't have to come to work every day. I get to come to work every day. And that sounds so stupid to say. It's on the same line as when people say we're not a business, we're a family. We support each other. It's like, dude, get out of here with that crap. We have one goal, and it's to make money. And we can have fun while we're here. But my goal is for Shiloh's kids to be able to eat. You know, like, period.
Yeah.
I have to make sure that Shiloh's kids have the ability to eat and maybe one day go to college and you know, whatever. So to do that, Josh has to do his job. And if nobody's buying our presses because there's rumors online that our stuff isn't welded properly, I have to catch that immediately. I have to reprimand Josh. And none of this is happening, by the way. So Josh, when you're listening to this, you're doing great, buddy. Honestly, best welds I've seen in years. You're really at the top of your game right now, truly. But if that does happen, I have to be able to grab Josh and say, Josh, this isn't okay. And guess what? That sucks. Having to have a responsibility that you're uncomfortable with is inevitable. And that doesn't just go for employee relations. You know what else sucks? Having to take 3 days to do your taxes as a small business. Nobody wants to sit in an office with bad lighting and, you know, somebody who is just barely qualified on TurboTax. You know, there are things that you will have to do when you go into these endeavors that is not fun. And I have like a 50-50 view because no, I did not start Cole Iron Works, but I was up late at night working on projects with you. You know, literally when Ollie was going with his surgery and stuff, like passing the baby back and forth. Well, now I work on this. Now you work on that. Now, oh, he's asleep. He can't, nobody can work on anything because the sound of the pencil on paper might wake him up, you know? It is hard work, but I will tell you, at the end of the day, you are proud of what you've accomplished. You make, and this is something that kind of popped into my head the other day in the shower, was we were looking up, it's the punch press you just bought.
A Roussel?
No, not the Roussel, the one that sounds like Fimic.
Oh, Farracute.
Farracute. We were looking, and we nerded out on their history and how they got started. It's such a cool
worthwhile.
And I was thinking about that. I was in the shower and I was like, man, this guy literally invented the hard drive. He was making presses in 50 years or in 100 years. What are people going to say about Cole Iron Works? And I had never really thought about, I think about what you're saying now because that directly ties into my ability to do my job. What are people going to say in 50 years when...
I did not invent the hard drive.
No, not you.
I know. They're not going to say that, though.
Nathan did not invent the hard drive. But
that's sad.
Will there be people that in 50 years are, I think it would be super cool if, you know, you go to some Hammer Inn or whatever and oh, that's an old coal ironworks. Then you go look at the serial date and you're like, I made that. You know, first of all, that was my first thought. I was like, it's going to be super cool once we get to like 25, 30 years. And people are calling and saying, hey, this was my grandpa's machine and I'm going to restore it. What do I need to do? Like, I'm really looking forward to that all of a sudden, which is going to take, that's a slow burn. That's a very slow burn to get there. But then it kind of dawned on me because of the ability, and I say it all the time, I'm treated well, which gives me the ability to treat my employees well. And my employees are then able to treat customers well by giving them the best product they can possibly receive. What will our legacy be? And I can guarantee that if you're doing the work, if you are giving it your utmost, your legacy is something that you can be proud of, completely null and void financial and recognition, like industry recognition based results. And it completely sums up to, I knew every time I had a problem, I could get Nathan on the phone or Francis on the phone. I knew every time that I had an issue, they had this great community that was able to support me because Francis was out building something and couldn't respond to an email right away or answer the phone right away. You know, even when I would call and talk to Chris doesn't have the most background in what we're doing and can't walk people through problems. But you know what? I got a person on the phone. I kind of started going back and looking at that. And I think that transfers to this, where if you want to quit your day job because you're looking for something easy, it's not going to work out for you. But if you want to quit your job to produce a legacy and to produce something you can be really proud of, not only can you have that, right? You get that warm, fuzzy feeling inside that I've been searching for my entire life. You get that warm, fuzzy feeling inside, but you also inspire people. And, you know, we've gotten a little bit emotional on the past couple podcasts, but that's it. Dude, that is like, I literally drove, and I forgot to tell everybody, I was so excited about it. I drove to work today with a monster truck following me, a legitimate monster truck. Like Gravedigger style, 1930s paddy wagon on 55-inch tires. And I was so stoked. And now that I'm talking about it, it like Ollie and Teddy. Like, they love monster trucks.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to take credit for that because I love monster trucks. And I've inspired them. Cool. You like monster trucks, but that's created a bond between us to where now I'm not just Nathan's friend. I'm the guy that comes over and has fun with him, and it's inspired them. And I hope to God one day they work on monster trucks and they're out at Monster Truck Jam and they're the mechanic or they're the driver or whatever. That, if you are leaving your job with the right intentions of creating legacy and creating a community and inspiring people, do it. Do it tomorrow. Do it and struggle. But if you are trying to quit your job to make your life easier, or honestly, even if you think you have a way to get rich, don't. Keep collecting paychecks from a business that doesn't know you exist. That's the easiest way to get rich. Climb the emotionless, soulless, defeating corporate ladder. Go work at a bank and do the bare minimum, and you will make millions. If you want to inspire people, if you want to have integrity and a lasting legacy, quit your job tomorrow. Absolutely. I 100% support your decision.
Sure.
And that's, I think that's my raw and honest and succinct, as you like to say, answer is look at your intentions.
Succinct. You said sucked.
Yeah, because you always say it wrong.
Oh, shut up. Rude.
But if you are wanting to stop what you're doing and you are getting no fulfillment out of it and you want to quit to find fulfillment and you want to inspire and you want to lead a legacy, dude, do it. Nothing is more commendable than that. And you're going to struggle and it's going to suck. And there are going to be days where you wake up and beat your head against the wall and wonder why you put yourself in this position. Wonder why God has forsaken you. You know, you will get into some weird spiritual areas. But it'll all be worth it. The hardest day that I have here is easier than any day that I had at Arby's because I hated working at Arby's. You know? So that's my answer. That's how you address that. Look at your intentions.
I fear that you made me want to quit my job. So that's concerning.
Well, hopefully you don't do that because I think my position changes a lot. I've got to get really good at forging axes all of a sudden.
You should probably have a bunch of kids.
Yeah, I have to have a lot of children. Mm-hmm. I've got to extend my property lines by quite a bit. But isn't it weird that that's become the new, like, kind of, well, how many acres do you own?
That's
like,
not
around
new.
the shop.
I mean,
no, around
like,
the shop.
Go back to, like, Genghis Khan, you know?
Maybe, yeah, fair.
Yeah. How many lands have you?
Maybe we're just reverting back to, like,
history
primal.
repeats itself.
Yeah. The moment that I got a house, it turned into, well, how many acres do you have?
Oh.
How many acres do you have?
I know. I was telling somebody, I met this guy over the weekend. He came to buy an old chicken coop that I had built.
So strictly business, because I can't have you having more friends.
And he pulled up, and we started talking, and he also has 5 kids, and their ages perfectly match my children's ages, and he owns a farm, and he just quit his job to farm elderberries. He farms 5.5 acres of elderberries full time. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. So we ended up standing there. I got my beautiful tan standing in my front yard for 3 hours. And Lynn finally came out, and she's like, hey, remember that like dinner and all of the other things that we had planned to get done today? I was like, yeah. So got him loaded. But I think I don't want to discuss anything else. I think that was a beautiful, succinct topic of conversation. And I'd love to leave you today with that thought. So whatever you do, whatever your hands find to do, what's the scripture? Whatever your hands find to do, do it as unto the Lord.
Right.
With all of yourself. So do that.
I've decided to do a giveaway.
We're going to give away a position. If you win, you get the job.
You get the job. I am going to do a giveaway for something. Actually, it lines up with the newest shirt that we're going to release that we've talked about. I think we talked about it, but Kurt Fehrenbach, wonderful mentor, wonderful friend, always seems to say the right things to get me to work harder, even when he doesn't mean to. We're going to put one of his Kurtisms is find the work, do the work. And I maybe talk about that 2 to 3 times a week, which is a lot. But we have a shirt coming out that has find the work, do the work on it and his name on it.
And a steam hammer.
It's a rough version of what it's going to look like.
It's a rough first draft. Probably going to be black with a cream background because I know what I'm talking about when I talk about apparel. Just throw that in there. I want you guys to tag us in a picture with or a picture of somebody that inspires you to either be better or do more or whatever the case is, somebody that constantly inspires you. But here's the caveat. I want you to make sure that you leave a very emotional, heartfelt message on it. Don't just tag somebody and say, this guy made his first knife with me. I want to know how they inspire you. Give these guys their flowers. Kevin always says, give him his flowers. I think that's the funniest, most beautiful way to say that is whoever got you into blacksmithing, whoever has challenged you to do better, made you fix something yourself instead of fixing it for you. Tag whoever has inspired you. And both of you will get a shirt.
2 shirts.
2 shirts.
Dose
shirts. So, and this I can tell by the look on his face is coming out of my paycheck. So, none of the shirt sizes that cost extra money. They're like 3X smalls or 3X smalls or 3X larges.
It'll be whatever it is.
But tag somebody who's inspired you to do better, to go out on your own or whatever.
I'm hoping that you make a post about Ollie.
Yeah.
You should definitely make a post about Ollie.
We shared a mullet season.
Yeah, he just asked for his mullet to get cut off.
Oh, his first mullet season. I thought you were going to say back. He wanted his mullet back.
Nope.
We shared a mullet season, buddy. It's a couple years ago. He was a wee little boy.
Well, that was a lovely conversation. Francis, thank you for joining me today. Time from your busy schedule. We're just going to wrap it up. Let's just wrap it up, guys. Thanks for joining us today on the Coalcast. Reach out to us, talk to us. If you want to work at Coal Iron Works, send us a DM. If you want to inspire the future, make a post about who inspires you.
Who inspires you?
And maybe get a sick shirt.
Give them their flowers.
Give them their flowers, guys. Au revoir.
Bye.
Bye.